Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming this evening and coming to the world premiere of Ahead of the Curve at Frameline44 Pride Showcase. My name is Andrea Pino-Silva, and I have the honor of being the impact and community engagement producer with the film crew. If at any point you have any questions about Ahead of the Curve, please connect with us, with the cast and the film crew at curvemagmovie.com. I have the privilege of introducing tonight's panelists, including Franco Stevens, director Jen Rainin, author and activist Jewelle Gomez, and wonderful educator Kim Katrin. All right, let's just start off with the question I think a lot of folks are thinking about is, how did this film come into being, Jen?
Well, I married this extraordinary woman. Over the first few years of our marriage, Franco would drop these little nuggets in my lap from time to time, like, oh yeah, you know, there were times that I had to go to a loan shark to make payroll, or, oh, you know, to get the money to start the magazine, I took out 12 credit cards in one day, cashed them all out and went to the racetrack. Or, oh, and then there was that time that I got sued by Catherine Deneuve. And I thought, oh my gosh, what a crazy story. This would make an amazing movie. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that we haven't done a great job of documenting our stories about queer women's history very well. And Franco is such a role model, and it's such a great story. So I asked if she would mind terribly if I made a movie about her, and she said, yeah, but not about me, about what happened and what I built with these all these incredible women.
I'm so curious to know, Franco, what's it like to have your wife make a film about you?
It's very exposing. And at first she wasn't going to be in the movie, but as the story developed, it became something much different. And I think the movie really took a turn when I got that call from Silka saying the future of the magazine is in question.
Yeah, it was really meant to be a historical piece until that fateful call.
And I just said, okay, here's access to all my archives, all my family photos, everything I have, and there were no secrets. And it was scary, and it's definitely scary tonight to have people watching the movie. I haven't seen until tonight. I'm seeing it along with everyone else.
You were really brave to let me in the way that you did. But I mean, anybody who's seen this movie understands this is a very brave woman. So I appreciate it. And I mean, to have the opportunity to dig that deeply into the life of the person that you married, you know, like it was really special. I feel really honored.
I will say there's something really beautiful about seeing how Franco's story is told by you, because I think especially for queer women, it's very rare for queer women's stories to be told by queer women. I think that is incredibly powerful. Why did you decide to feature the woman that you chose to feature in Ahead of the Curve?
It was a natural thing for us, I think, to look out into the community to see who's doing that kind of visibility work today and what that work looks like. And that led us to women like the exquisite Kim Katrin and Denise Froman and Amber Hikes, and to you, Andrea. I mean, what was that like for you to be featured?
For so much of my career as an activist, as a storyteller, I've had to explain what it's like to be a queer woman and why my queerness impacts my movement work. I cannot divorce my movement from my work around race, my work around sexual violence, and even my scholarship. It is such a big part of who I am, and to not have to even explain that it's important is completely invaluable. And I think it comes across so honestly in the film, how proud everyone is and how much joy you have in that community. And I think that type of story can only happen if the film was being first created and then brought to life by a community of queer women.
You know, while you were talking, Andrea, it just made me think about Kim, about the message, some of the messages that you brought into the film and into our lives as we were making the film around about the importance of showing up as your whole self and the intersectionality of it all. Will you talk a little bit about what it was like for you to participate in this film?
I think that often, because of the way that movement building has happened in the past, we often are asked to represent as fractions of ourselves, as just women or as just queer folks. And I think even more so as a mother, there really isn't a way to step outside of it. And wanting to show, and I think that that's also why the work that I've done has happened in the way that it has. So it was really interesting for me to think about how my work is connected to the work and the visibility work of Curve Meg, and also connected to so many other people who are doing very similar things, but how important it is to have the space for all of us to show up the way that we do, with that kind of authenticity, because I really do think that it's with the uniqueness of our stories that people get to see possibility models, you know, that there are many different ways that we're showing up, and all of it is necessary when we build a community.
I think especially now, you know, to see how much energy there is in the protests, especially right now in DC where I live, how many queer people are on the front lines at all of these protests, because we've always been there. Queer women have always been leading movements. And Jewelle, I want to hear about you know, your story and what it's like to have been a founding member of GLAAD and to have had such an instrumental seat, you know, really on the front lines of history of our movement for over 30 years.
You know, in the early 80s, when I first got involved in different political activities in New York, post, you know, civil rights movement, I first learned as a lesbian feminist that personal is political. You know, when I was beginning work with GLAAD in the 80s, there weren't that many women involved, and it was just at the beginning of AIDS activism. So to jump from that into the 90s with Curve and that kind of real deep, broad involvement in activism was really exciting to me. And today, of course, it's the more we bring to any movement we're involved in, the stronger we are. You know, it's just the nature of energy. You know, if I can bring all of myself to the work, I have much more to give. And it's been lovely to see it building, each generation building on the generation before.
I love that. And I think especially when we think of activists, we oftentimes, you know, almost make them these mythical people, right? These heroes of the way that had all this money and funding and the right idea, right, and thought they could make mistakes. And that's just, it's farthest from the truth. I mean, the everyday heroes, the everyday activists are the people who simply cared about something so much, they put everything on the line. And Franco's definitely one of those people.
And every activist that I've known, I mean, through my years, when we started, we were young. I was actually 20 when I started doing this, which means you also could be doing some of this and starting to make your mark.
I think when you're younger, you have less inhibitions, you have less to lose.
Right.
But Jewelle, I just want to point out that the first time I met you, I believe you were super femmed up. And I just looked at her and I was like, damn, she's hot. And there's another reason why, you know, lesbians need to be more accepting of, you know, women that look like everything. I mean,
and that's one of the things the magazine I think was really great for, to see this whole array of what lesbians could be, you know. And as a high femme, I always think of myself as the guerrilla warfare fighter, coming in under the radar, subverting the patriarchy.
Yeah, and talk about doing that. Look at Kim.
Oh yes.
You continue to dispel this myth of what a lesbian looks like. Kim, how has it been for you? I mean, you're obviously very femme. Do you get, you know, mistaken for a cisgendered straight woman?
I think that, again, I think the younger generations, like Generation Z, is just like, you know, doing such amazing things that they don't have the same rigidity around a lot of gender ideas. You know, like this is the generation that's literally out toppling statues of slaveholders, you know? So when I work and I have a chance to work a lot with, you know, teenagers and like very, very young adults, and they don't have like, just, they teach me so much around like where gender is going. And, you know, one of the things that's so important about representation and about media is that it gives people a language that they didn't have access to, right? They may have been thinking something or feeling something, but without having anyone else who reflects that back to you, or anyone else who communicates in that way, you may never believe that you should even exist. I know. Soleil is taking pictures of this, so.
Excellent.
I keep coming back to that conversation with Denise, Amber, and Franco around racism in the queer community, and how, you know, really the LGBT movement has always included toppling white supremacy, has always included tackling police violence, has always included disability rights and immigration, but oftentimes those added intersections get completely lost. And to me, as a person who is a daughter of refugees, has a disability, has a sister has a disability, I mean, these are issues that I can't forget, right? And I think especially one of the moments that for me was the most difficult was during Kavanaugh's hearings, where, I mean, as a sexual assault survivor, there was this whole idea of not being able to talk about queerness and violence and womanhood and queerness. And why is that? Why is it that our community, perhaps in the past, has not historically been able to talk about these added layers? People who either have a disability or who are Black or brown, and have to choose between those identities, and not being able to talk about them at the same time. Like, what does it mean for us, and how can we be better about not just holding our community accountable, but also being more present and unapologetic in all of our identities? And that goes to anybody, honestly. I'm very y'all are thinking.
Big question.
And we're supposed to answer that in 2 minutes or less. Go.
Right.
Now more than ever, we need to lean on our queerness as another source to get us through these things, but also to allow us to imagine something more, right? It's not about imagining what life was like before Trump. It's imagining what Marsha P. Johnson and Audre Lorde were thinking about then. It's the unimaginable that I think we have that capability.
And I really like to celebrate that. And I feel proud of the fact that our community strives for that equality, knowing that everybody in our community comes from that heterosexual world that has all those biases, and we bring those biases with us when we come to the queer community. So I feel really proud that we've come as far as we have in moving beyond our upbringings.
I think our experiences of marginalization can be a point of entry for us understanding what exclusion has felt like and why we don't want to do it to other people. I think that intersectionality gets embodied in so many people around us, but I do think that we have to keep stretching. Like, there has to be a place of understanding that, you know, allyship is not an identity, it's a process. This is a place we're moving towards, that we're never actually going to get to a place where we get it. We may never have complete and total understanding of everyone around us, but we can keep moving in a way that drives that empathy.
I feel so incredibly fortunate and grateful to be in community with all of you, with all of the women who came together to make this film. Frank, I'm so grateful to you for letting me so deeply into your life.
I'm so honored.
Oh my goodness. And Kim and Jewelle, thank you so much for participating on this panel. Andrea, especially thank you to you for facilitating. I have an enormous thanks to give to my fellow filmmaker, the co-director of this film, Rivka Beth Meadow. Rivka is not on the panel with us today, but holy wow, I could not have done this without her. And of course, thank you to Frameline so much for believing in this project and letting us participate.
So before you go, I just want to say one more time, go to the Curve Foundation and tell us what the community needs now.
And if you do have questions for filmmakers or anyone in the film, please visit curvemagmovie.com and put your questions in there. We'll get them answered as quick as we can. Thanks everyone so much.